But he showed me this cover, and I pointed to the Times. Oh, you've even got the Times in it, like his dick wasn't out, you know?
Many legendary artists over the years have featured shocking and risque artwork on their album covers, some even deemed too explicit for their time. Today we'll be covering these stories, showcasing albums that were so controversial, they were banned. Likely one of the most infamous covers in rock music history, the Beatles' Yesterday and Today initially featured the Fab Four dressed in butcher coats, draped in raw meat and decapitated baby dolls. The photo wasn't originally intended to be the cover, but was submitted along with other promotional material for the compilation album. Paul was a proponent for the photo, seeing it as a statement on the Vietnam War. George found the whole thing gross, but went along with it, and John thought it was brilliant, tired of the traditional photo shoots the Beatles had been marketed with, pushing for the photo to be used. Taken by Robert Whittaker, whose images have been showcased on prolific albums such as Cream's Disraeli Gears and Revolver. The shoot was originally a trilogy of photos he titled Somnambulant Adventure, meaning the adventure of sleepwalking. To Whittaker, the images were a commentary on the adoration of the group and the illusion of fame. To many fans, they see this imagery as a form of protest against US label Capitol Records, essentially stating that they butchered how the Beatles' music was offered to American audiences. Capitol had a history of altering their album track lists, cutting songs, and adding heavy reverb on releases for the American market. As Yesterday and Today was a Capitol release compilation of songs from Help, Rubber Soul, and what would later become Revolver, the cover is utterly fitting with that statement in mind. Upon distribution companies receiving copies of the album before release, the cover was met with immediate backlash, most companies finding it disturbing. Capitol would then swiftly distribute a notice that this iteration of the album was being recalled and needed to be re-sleeved to don a new, more acceptable cover. It's no surprise that the vinyl featuring the original shot is now considered a collector's item, with sealed copies being worth tens of thousands of dollars. And although the Beatles would meet backlash with Yesterday and Today, it was nothing compared to the nude minor featured on Blind Faith's self-titled. Considered Eric Clapton's supergroup, Blind Faith saw Clapton join forces with Steve Winwood, Traffic's Rick Gretsch, and Cream's Ginger Baker. Blind Faith wasn't just recognized for its members, but also how controversial the cover of their one and only album truly was, featuring 11-year-old Mariara Goshen posing nude, holding a model spacecraft. The vision came from Bob Seidemann, New York-based artist and photographer who was commissioned by Clapton to create the cover. Already well known for being embedded in late 60s counterculture, collaborating with acts like Janis Joplin and the Grateful Dead. This would actually be the first of many covers he would contribute to, providing photography for notable artists like Neil Young, Supertramp, and Heart. He concocted an idea that to him symbolized combining the technological accomplishments of humanity with the innocence of a young girl, supposedly the two representing the fruit of the tree of life. As if it weren't already weird enough, Bob initially had a model in mind that he observed in the London Underground Railway, but after learning she was in her early teens, he deemed the girl too old, setting eyes on her younger sister as a more suitable subject. With the promise of a young horse, Goshen and her parents agreed to the details of the shoe. He named the image Blind Faith, which inspired Clapton to leverage the title as both the name of the band and the album. Clapton apparently loved the artwork, pushing labels to sign off on it for use. To no one's surprise, once released, the image created an almost immediate controversy, shocking the music industry and fans alike. This also fostered rumors that the girl had been sex trafficked by the band, resulting in a wave of bans across the US. Blind Faith's American record label, Atlantic Corporation, then forced reproduction, new copies showcasing the band itself. Goshen, now 69 years old, grew up to be a massage therapist and shiatsu practitioner. She claimed in interviews that the nudity never bothered her. As an adult, she stated she's always been thrilled when anyone mentions the Blind Faith LP. And even though Clapton was a proponent for approving his band's cover, the same can't be said about Jimi Hendrix. An absolute staple in rock history, Electric Ladyland has mesmerized audiences for over 50 years. The artwork's vibrant and visual psychedelic imagery has become synonymous with the associated era, but most don't know that there was actually another rendition of the cover, one that Hendrix himself despised. The image showcases a group of 19 naked women sitting against a dark background, some even holding pictures of Hendrix albums. In 1968, the Jimi Hendrix Experience was signed to UK label Track Records, who tasked themselves with speaking to women around local London bars and clubs, offering them £5 if they posed topless, and 10 if they were completely naked. For anyone wondering, that's roughly $150 or $300 US by today's standard. Photographer David Montgomery shot the photo, Montgomery also being responsible for one of the most notable pictures of Hendrix ever produced. Distributing the album in the UK saw difficulties with censorship, which were unknown to Hendrix at the time. The controversy brewed, finding its way back to Hendrix stateside, who was not only shocked, but displeased with how his work was being represented, stating, "I wouldn't have put this picture on the sleeve myself, but it wasn't my decision. It's mostly all bullshit." In fact, he didn't even have any creative control over any renditions of the cover, originally writing a letter to convey his initial vision, having every member of the Jimi Hendrix Experience sitting with a group of children on the Central Park Alice in Wonderland statue. But after failing to come up with a design in the agreed-upon timeline, the request was ignored by the label, opting for the cover that we all know and love today. An enigmatic and feverish shot of Hendrix, mid-performance at the Savile Theatre in London's West End. And although Hendrix wouldn't have control over the image used for his album, John and Yoko saw it fit to simply take it themselves. Now, John Lennon and Yoko Ono aren't only two of music's most notable lovers, but a pair that would showcase their experimental affair through music, John inviting Yoko to record in his home in 1968, while his then-wife Cynthia Lennon was on holiday. The cover showcases the pair fully nude, taken on a time-delayed camera, set up by director, producer, and childhood friend of the Beatles Tony Bramwell. The delay on the camera was intentional as the couple was a bit self-conscious when peeling off their clothes for the shot. The photo was taken at 34 Montague Square, a basement apartment in London leased by Ringo Starr in the 60s, famous for housing Paul McCartney while recording demos for I'm Looking Through You and arranging Eleanor Rigby. Later, Hendrix would write The Wind Cries Mary during his stay. Upon release in 1968, Two Virgins became instantly famous, and also immensely controversial for its nudity. So provoking to audiences that Apple Records interns had to bag the album up with a paper bag, a hole cut out to show John and Yoko's heads. Choosing the name Two Virgins felt fitting for the duo, as they perceived themselves as two innocents lost in a world gone mad. In several areas of the US, thousands of copies of the album were seized for obscenity. Lennon commenting that the uproar seemed to have less to do with the explicit nudity and more to do with the fact that the pair were unattractive. He described it later in his third book, Skywriting by Word of Mouth, as a picture of two slightly overweight ex-junkies. And although Two Virgins would use nudity as a means to portray vulnerability, Roxy Music's Country Life had the intention of it being sexual. In the early 70s, Roxy Music had developed their sound, giving listeners a dose of glam, art, and electronic-tinged rock that would shape music forever. The first three albums featuring highly stylized studio glamour shots of various ladies in alluring poses. But for fourth studio album Country Life, the approach was a bit more provocative and improvisational. The image depicts two scantily clad women posing in transparent lingerie, the backdrop of foliage sitting behind them. Originally taken in Portugal, where co-founder and lead vocalist Brian Ferry had been residing while writing lyrics for the album. Funnily enough, the models and entire shoot came together through pure coincidence. Ferry had flown stylist Anthony Price and photographer Eric Bowman out, meeting to discuss ideas and direction for the album moving forward. Now seated in a small bar, two striking German women entered. Sparking conversation led to some surprising discoveries. Evelina Grunwald and Costanzi Caroli being no strangers to the world of experimental rock, as Evelina was going out with Can's guitarist, Mikhail Caroli, Costanzi of course being Mikhail's sister. The ladies agreed to the idea, the photo being shot in the garden of a summer house owned by Evelina's parents. Evelina even going on to do graphic design work for the covers of multiple German artists in the 1980s. In reviewing the photos later, Ferry was first dissatisfied with the images, as they lacked the polish he was accustomed to, but later realized that the strength came from that rawness. It made them work. As it's pretty obvious that nudity was on the cover, American censorship swiftly took hold, many retailers refusing to stock the album unless it was wrapped in a dark green plastic. Atlantic Corporation, the band's US label, eventually demanding a redesign, the new cover featuring the plant life from the original background as a centerpiece. And although Roxy Music was forced to change their cover due to censorship, Jane's Addiction refused. In the late 80s and early 90s, Jane's Addiction helped usher in a unique sound for alternative rock, their seminal album, Nothing Shocking, being the main driver. Frontman Perry Farrell attests that the image for the album's cover came to him in a dream, working with then-girlfriend Casey Nicole to help refine the vision. The final image depicts a sculpture of female nude Siamese twins, sitting on a sideways rocking chair with their heads set ablaze. Farrell originally hired employees at Jane's label Warner Brothers to assist in having the sculptures come to fruition. He observed the team closely as they progressed on their work, even learning how to create sculptures himself. Thinking that he could achieve a better result, he then fired them. having a full-body cast done of girlfriend Casey Nicoli. Farrell would use her figure as a foundation for the twins' sculptures. Hair and headgear were then fashioned from pipe cleaners. Fake eyeballs were inserted into the mold, with a specially crafted rocking chair completing the scene. Having a dual pair of large breasts at the forefront of the album meant objections across the board. 9 out of the 11 leading record store chains in North America refused to carry the album. As the band wanted to stand behind Farrell's art, the initial release was in independent record stores, while chains received it in a brown paper bag. Dave Navarro, guitarist of Jane's Addiction since 1986, telling Billboard the following: "So the record was inside some kind of sleeve that protected people's eyes from being damaged by something that everyone in the world has, which is their naked body. It's just weird. Perry fucking made that sculpture. You know what I mean? And we didn't understand why you can go see the Venus de Milo, but you can't buy our record. What the fuck is the difference?" Ultimately, the album had pretty moderate sales after its release, but with the success of Jane's second full-length, fans rediscovered Nothing Shocking for the amazing genre-bridging hybrid it truly was. And although the cover of Nothing Shocking would surprise audiences, it falters in comparison to the Scorpions' Virgin Killer. Arguably the most controversial album cover ever made, Virgin Killer shows a naked 10-year-old girl with shattered glass obscuring her genitalia. The design was originally done by Stefan Burlet, product manager for the band's label, RCA Records. To RCA, controversy would have a direct correlation to selling records, regardless of if that meant branching into immoral themes. Scorpions rhythm guitarist Rudolf Schenker relayed in a 2007 interview that the band didn't have any idea about the cover's image, further supporting that the idea came from RCA, even stating that a member of the label's team proclaimed, "Even if we have to go to jail, there's no question that we'll release that." In later interviews, Schenker would claim he thought the cover was a great thing, pushing for people to think differently, and claiming the title track's lyrics help support the image metaphorically, with time being the Virgin Killer. Although if you read the lyrics, I can't see it myself. Let me know what you think. The full name of the girl pictured in the photo was never publicly released, although some believe her name to be Jacqueline. Schenker urged that when meeting her 15 years after the photo was taken, she had no issues with her portrayal on the cover. As with most of the albums mentioned today, the release would mark immediate controversy, RCA not able to offer the record in America, while distributors in Europe would forgo the brown paper bag treatment for black plastic, some countries requiring an alternate cover to even carry the record. Now there are plenty of other albums that could have made this list. Definitely let me know in the comments section below if I missed one. If you enjoyed this video, you might dig the one on the screen now, explaining what happened to the real people on these famous album covers. Thank you all for watching. If you dug the content, feel free to drop a like or a sub. We drop videos on music-related topics every Wednesday. So until then, I hope to see you again soon. I love noise, but what is up with that John and Yoko album?